Hey y'all, my name is Devontae and I sacrifice my time so you don't have to. Whenever I make these downfall videos, inevitably it's going to be a bunch of people who get upset. Typically, they like to put up the facade that they actually care for the superstar who I'm talking about, who I'm calling out, I'm damaging, when in reality, I'm just using my eyes and my ears and all five senses. Again, maybe six senses because I have more sense than you. But in reality, it's all just a front just to play up the fact that they're hardcore AEW fans and they don't like the notion of people saying that the person who were previously in another company is now currently doing bad in AEW's world, right? But the problem with that is usually there's a bunch of discrepancy, right? One person's trash is another person's treasure, is the old saying. But I think when you look at someone like Adam Copeland, the legendary Edge, I don't think anyone can look at what he's been doing so far. It's almost been a year now since he's come to AEW, and look at what he's done in WWE and say that he's been the best version of himself, right? So, like I said, we'll pinpoint some of the things about Edge's career just to kind of have a bit of a compare and contrast like we usually do for these downfall videos. Let's go back to, let's say, 1998, right? That's when Edge first started with WWE, as far as like being seen on television. You look at his previous career, obviously there's no reason to touch on this stuff when he was wrestling on the indie circuit in Canada. There's no reason to touch on the stuff when he was like, Sexton Hardcastle or Damon Stryker or any of that bullshit in WCW. We're talking about Edge. And when he first came in, I always felt personally that this was supposed to be an answer to guys like Sting. More in particular, this is supposed to be an answer to guys like Raven. Because back then in the mid-90s, we had this whole thing where we were really, really obsessed with goth characters. We were very obsessed with witches and warlocks and, just darkness overall, right? You look at the cartoon shows that they were starting to prepare, shows like, Scooby-Doo on Zombie Island, and, just the whole refreshing of the franchise of Scooby-Doo, Courage the Cowardly Dog, for an example, stuff like that. And you started to see people starting to gravitate more towards that, right? You have movies like The Craft, I Know What You Did Last Summer, Scream, bunch of slasher films on television, stuff that were a little bit goofy, but at the same time, like Sabrina the Teenage Witch, for an example, Buffy the Vampire Slayer. That shit was just all the rage at the time. And I felt like Edge, or Vince Russo, I guess, in this matter, was trying to capitalize on all the sensation in regards to dark gimmicks and all that other stuff and all the goth shit. And comes Edge, his character essentially is just a loner. He wasn't even so much, because eventually as time started to go on, it almost felt like they were trying to make him a vampire. He comes and eventually he was by himself. I don't think people ever actually realize this. I think a lot of people think that, him and Christian both started off in WWE. No. Edge for a few months, unfortunately he did break someone's neck from Los Boricuas. I can't remember his name though. But, he was pretty much doing stuff with Jacqueline, with Sable, with Mark Marrow. That's what he was pretty much doing for the most part in his early portions of his WWE career, while going up against a couple of jobbers or two. But he got his I guess you could say his big break at the time. Obviously, he got bigger breaks as time started to go on when he was teaming up with Christian, which, again, it wasn't as if it came in together. It was a whole thing with Edge, who he was being stalked by Gangrel, and then eventually Christian made his way to, I think it was Breakdown, DX Breakdown, and that's when he introduced himself. They started calling each other brothers and stuff like that. And honestly, I always kind of felt like the storyline in itself was never really completely fleshed out. At first you had Gangrel and Christian, who were kind of torturing Edge a little bit mentally, and then just out of nowhere, I remember they did a beatdown segment on one of the superstars, and then like out of nowhere Edge came and like he was gonna make the save, but then he helped join in with the Brood to beat the fuck down on someone. I think it was Kane, actually, because I think that's when Kane tried to light them on fire a couple of weeks later. But eventually the Brood, they started to team up with the Ministry of Darkness, Undertaker stable, and Undertaker had this whole fleshed out Ministry of Darkness with the Acolytes and Viscera and Midian and just a bunch of people, and the Brood were included in that also. Eventually the Brood, they kicked out the Ministry of Darkness kicked out the Brood because they were feuding at the time. Undertaker was feuding with Ken Shamrock, and he kidnapped Stephanie, and that's when he was gonna like crucify her and shit like that. But they were looking for Stephanie, and Ken Shamrock couldn't find her. Eventually he got the information out of Christian, which Undertaker obviously did not like, and they took it upon themselves to beat the fuck out of Christian. And Edge and Gangrel, obviously they're gonna side with Christian, and that's how that all went down as far as them breaking away from the Brood. Eventually Edge and Christian did start teaming up, because for a minute, something else no one ever talks about, at least for the early portions of like 99 and the late portions of 98, Edge and Christian weren't teaming up. It was actually Edge and Gangrel. Christian was the cruiserweight champion. I don't think anyone ever talks about that also. But eventually people started to see more in Edge, and they started to see less in Gangrel, because they realized he fucking sucked on the microphone. And we started getting more Edge and Christian stuff, right? Eventually Gangrel did turn on Edge and Christian, and because the whole thing that was going on with that was like, it was Edge and Christian and Gangrel, and it was like the Hardy Boys and Michael P.S. Hayes at the time. And the whole thing and the whole stick behind that was just the fact that Gangrel did not like apparently how Edge was kind of usurping him in leadership and stuff like that, and he was trying to get Christian to side with him, and then Christian side with Edge, and that's how they broke away. They became baby faces. Eventually Gangrel took up the Hardy Boys when they dropped Michael P.S. Hayes, and we started to get these ridiculous, incredible, fun matches. I'm talking about even before the No Mercy ladder match. We got even before the Best of 5 series. I remember they had a banging match at SummerSlam. It was like in the midst of a gauntlet match. One of my favorite spots in wrestling history, and it blew my fucking mind when I seen it at first. Nowadays you get stunts like this all the time, but it was crazy back in the days when you had it was a spot at SummerSlam 99 where like Matt Hardy threw Edge at one barricade, and on the opposite side of the ring, Christian is throwing Jeff Hardy at a barricade, and both of them like jump on top of the barricade, and they're like both running, and then they meet each other in the middle of the rampway, and Jeff Hardy jumps off and Edge spears him in midair. It's such a bomb ass fin. I love that spot to death. It's so fucking bomb. But they were having matches like that all the time, and then eventually they had their Best of 5 series, which culminated in the Terry Invitational Tournament, which obviously groundbreaking match for professional wrestling. Depends how you look at it. Some people may say that it was a detriment to professional wrestling. Some people may say that it hurt professional wrestling in the long run, especially with what you're seeing nowadays. But it was groundbreaking. They took Shawn Michaels and Razor Ramon. They took their matches, and they just exploded it, man. Every kid was trying to be the Hardy Boys at the time. Not so much Edge and Christian, but the Hardy Boys, everybody was trying to be. But I appreciated Edge and Christian by hating the fuck out of them, because they kept beating the fuck out of the Hardy Boys. That was eventually down the line in 2000. But that match was groundbreaking. All the spots that they were doing, Jeff Hardy obviously doing 2 of his most notable spots of all time. The leapfrog over the ladder spot that he always does, that was in this match when he first did it. And the seesaw ladder spot where, the one that fucked up Joey Mercury's face, where Jeff would jump over the ladder and then like he'll seesaw it up and hit people in the face. This was the first match to do this also. And just other just incredible fucking things that like at the time it was just fucking groundbreaking. Hell, those spots you can do nowadays, maybe not on a pay-per-view, but on a regular TV show, and they'll get over just as fucking hard. Nevertheless, though, they started to build more momentum, but at the same time, while they were building momentum, because they were going against teams like Too Cool and the New Age Outlaws and shit like that, they were trying to help out the Hardy Boys going throughout 99 when they were feuding with the Dudleys, and like I said, the APA, Too Cool, New Age Outlaws. But eventually, while they were building up momentum, Edge did kind of have like a bit of a side gig. That's when they started picking on his teeth all the fucking time, and Edge eventually started to team. He was like judging shows at the Royal Rumble and shit like that. But eventually, that's when we started to get more of Edge and Christian turning heels, because they kind of felt like the Hardy Boys and the Dudley Boys, especially after the Royal Rumble 2000 with the Elimination Tables match, which was also groundbreaking at the time. They kind of felt like that they were being lost in the sauce, right? They were being lost in the action. Eventually, they did have a banging No Way Out 2000 match with the Hardy Boys for a #1 contender shot at the Tag Team Championships. But eventually, they took that away from them, and then eventually became the Triangle Ladder match with the Dudleys, Hardys, and Edge and Christian. Another groundbreaking match. And they were already heels by this point, but they weren't really quite heels. I think people forget that also, because the year 2000 kind of feels like a blur, and it feels like everything happened like at the start of 2000. But all the trademark stuff, even like the "what's that" from the Dudley Boys and all that shit, that didn't occur till like after SummerSlam. I think people have a misconception that all this shit happened in the beginning of 2000 or even in late 99. No, all the trademark stuff started happening in like the fall of 2000. But nevertheless, though, Edge and Christian won that ladder match, and that's when they became more established as heels. That's when they started to do the whole little surfer gimmick stuff, and they got away from like the gothic shit. And you started getting the, for those with the benefit of flash photography, we're gonna give you a 5-second pose. That shit right there, and we reek of awesomeness and totally tubular shit. People always say they were servers. I always kind of felt like, and I know the movie came out afterwards, it's just a coincidence, but man, they always kind of gave me like a Kelso, Ashton Kutcher from That 70s Show kind of feel. And I kind of feel like Dude, Where's My Car just ripped off the entire gimmick from Edge and Christian, but I don't know, maybe that's just me. Eventually, throughout the summertime, they were feuding with guys like the Dudley Boys and Hardy Boys. They lost their tag team championships to Too Cool because of Josie, rest in peace, by the way. That was Kid Rock's old mascot. And eventually they were just going back and forth with the tag team championships, bro, throughout the tag team roster in general, man. Too Cool, the APA, the TNA, for an example. My God, they had so many teams. The Dudleys, the Hardys, Edge and Christian, obviously. Just so many fucking tag teams. You even had jobber tag teams like Kintai, for example, Funaki and Takamichi. That's how many fucking tag teams you had. You can have jobber tag teams. But obviously this all culminated at SummerSlam 2000 and another groundbreaking match with the original TLC match. Another misconception. Ladder match was at WrestleMania. TLC match was at SummerSlam 2000. Fucking insane match. I mean, one of my best childhood memories was SummerSlam 2000. I remember everybody in school trying to do what the fuck they were doing in this match, and everybody breaking their legs, including my brother, who literally split his leg in fucking half trying to copy off of Jeff Hardy and, hit his leg on a vase. And that's another story for another day. Eventually, they started a feud with the Hardys throughout 2000, the Dudley Boys throughout 2000, trading tag team belts back and forth and shit. And then we get to another groundbreaking match at WrestleMania 17. Obviously, that's the most known match, TLC 2. One of the greatest matches in the history of the business. Also one of those matches, kind of like Undertaker and Mankind from, King of the Ring 98, where it's like it is incredibly groundbreaking, but then at the same time, it's like at what cost, considering what it's done to the business. Nowadays, there are people who are still trying to do spots from WrestleMania 17, and it's like, I don't know, it's like you appreciate the match for what it is, because for me, it's not even just a match, it's just a part of my childhood. But then at the same time, it's like you watch wrestling nowadays and you see stuff like Swerve Strickland and Heyman Adam Page, for an example, and I'm not saying they directly influenced that match, for an example, but I will be lying if I didn't say guys like them or Foley didn't influence that match as a whole. Not this match, but these guys cultivating with this mindset didn't influence the mindset for matches like that. You know what I mean? But it is what it is. Like I said, Edge and Christian won that match also, just like they won at SummerSlam. They won all the triangle ladder matches. Everybody online was bitching and moaning, complaining, Negroni. Oh, the Dudley Boys and the Hardys are putting in all the work. Oh, Edge and Christian, they just sit around, they don't do a goddamn thing, and they eventually get the tag team championship belts. Great, you understand the concept of a fucking heel. Congratulations. Eventually, they did drop the belts to Jericho and Benoit at Judgment Day 2001. And, you got a banging Fatal 4-Way TLC match on the episode of SmackDown that no one ever talks about. Fucking awesome match. But this is around the time when Edge started to, show a little twinkle in his eye as far as becoming a single star. He eventually went to the King of the Ring. The quarterfinals was Rhino and Kurt Angle and Edge and Christian. Angle ended up beating Christian, and Edge ended up beating Rhino after one of the dumbest fucking moves of all time when they both simultaneously hit a spear on each other. Well, Rhino did a gore, spear, same thing. And then Edge had a match with Kurt Angle, which obviously Shane McMahon cost him that match, which obviously, set up the match for Shane and Kurt going forward later on that night. It's still one of the most unnecessary bloody matches of all time. Probably also influenced the fucking hardcore scene today nowadays also, now I think about it. But Edge won the King of the Ring trophy, and this was his first time. This was his breakout stuff with winning the King of the Ring trophy, and then eventually he won the Intercontinental Championship from Lance Storm at SummerSlam, and he was sitting on top of the world. Christian wasn't, in character, who was jealous of Edge. Wouldn't be too surprised if he was jealous of him in real life also, because Edge is getting all the push, right? But they did feud, and they had a nice feud. They had a match at Unforgiven. I think Christian won the Intercontinental Championship at that show, and then eventually they had that awesome ladder match at No Mercy 2000. Well, I wouldn't say awesome. I do kind of slightly remember feeling a little bit disappointed by that match. I don't know why. I haven't watched that match in a couple of years. I might watch it tonight, actually. But I remember feeling disappointed when I watched that match live. But nevertheless, though, going forward, Edge, by this point, after the Christian stuff, yeah, he's Intercontinental Champion. Yeah, he's doing his thing, but he's still kind of like floundering a little bit. You know, he did a couple of things with the invasion angle, you know, with Test and a unification match, and you know, here and there. And I thought that he had one of the most disappointing feuds of all time. And on top of that, some of the most disappointing matches of all time with William Regal going into 2002. Their No Way Out match just pisses me off every time I see it because it's Edge and it's William Regal. You would think they'd put on a fucking banger. Nope. And then Edge also had a lame-ass feud with Booker T over fucking shampoo, which was fucking lame as hell too. And they had a lame-ass match at WrestleMania 18 also. But this is around the time after this when Edge started to find his groove as a single star, when he got into his feud with Kurt Angle. And this is when Edge, the performer, started to leak out because Edge and Angle, let me tell you something, guys. Let me tell you something. Edge and Kurt Angle in the spring of 2002 were putting on some of the greatest fucking matches up to that point I think I've ever seen in North America. They had so many incredible fucking matches. The Backlash 2002 match was fucking awesome. And somehow they taught themselves. And what I feel is top 100 greatest matches of all time. Maybe if I didn't put it there, I'd like to revise my list and put it there. I think I did put it there though. Judgment Day 2002, the hair versus hair match. Fucking just spectacular work. You know, and again, I don't think people really give Edge enough credit for how much he's probably destroyed the business when you think about it. Because it's like the TLC matches, and then you see the way Edge wrestles in 2002. It is very, very reminiscent to how you see the guys in AEW wrestle nowadays. Not from the front flip perspective, but from the mentality, and even to a lesser degree from the flipping perspective, but more so the mentality. Because Edge and Angle, they were doing their matches in a way where it's like, they just had nothing to lose, and they would go out there and they would just do false finish after false finish after false finish after false finish, reversal into false finish, reversal into false finish. The only good thing about their matches was it wasn't false finishes based off of finishers. It was false finishes just based off of regular moves, and most of their matches would end in roll-ups also, you know what I mean? I mean, outside of the Backlash, which was awesome. Edge had to go for the spear and then Angle kicked him in the face and then hit him with the Angle slam. That was fucking awesome. But Edge won for roll-up in this match right here, and he ended up shaving Kurt Angle's head, which he was already balding as is, which obviously turned Angle into a fucking machine going forward because now he has the look that he's known for nowadays. But he also had a steel cage match with Kurt Angle, which he fucked up his shoulder also in that match. And it always confused me too, because I go back and I watch that show and it's such a blur, because it's like, didn't Edge like have, because this is me thinking to myself, like, he was teaming up with Hogan not too long after this with the Angle stuff, and he has like the cast on his arm, and you know, Jericho beating the fuck out of him and shit. And I'm just like, it's such a blur, bruh. I mean, it's like, was this injury just that less significant, and they just probably played it up with the cast and stuff? Because it's like, man, they show him off as having an injury, and I feel like 3 weeks later he was already teaming up with Hogan. It's like, when the fuck did this injury occur? But eventually, like I said, he was teaming up with Hogan, playing up to his childhood dream. And even though it was like a tag team and it was a put together, I kind of felt like it was still more so to kind of help Edge get even more over as a single star, because he's teaming up with a superstar like Hulk Hogan. He's now involved with matches with The Rock and shit like that. But you know, they eventually dropped the belts to the Un-Americans at Vengeance 2002. And you know, Edge, he's going throughout because here's the thing, I know a lot of people come in, I love the matches with Eddie and Edge. You know, the match at SummerSlam, awesome. The the match at Unforgiven, awesome. One of the most wicked fucking power bombs you would ever fucking see, which I think also, if Edge didn't talk about it, I think he said that also fucked with his neck a little bit too. Even before they got to the no disqualification match on SmackDown, and then you got the uppercut from Eddie on Edge, and he hits the base of his neck on the ladder. I think he said that power bomb right there is what actually initially fucked up his neck, and that the ladder just accentuated that problem. But, you know, Edge and Eddie had a fantastic feud in regards to the matches in themselves. But, you know, Edge's feuds were very much stemming off of the fact that, like, almost all of them that I kept seeing throughout 2002 was, "You're a pretty boy. You can't actually go in the ring. I'm jealous of your looks." Like, it was just so corny. Edge was putting on fantastic fucking matches. Some of the best work of his career from an in-ring perspective. I just kind of thought it was very corny that almost everything that he kept sinking his teeth into was, "Oh, well, you're a pretty boy." But obviously around this time, this is when we started getting the SmackDown 6 stuff, and it was Edge and Mysterio and Eddie and Chavo and Kurt and Benoit, and all 6 of those guys in multiple variation type of matches, triple threat matches, tag team matches, fatal 4-way matches, fatal 4-way pack matches, elimination matches, triple threat tag team matches, one-on-one matches. These 6 guys, with the help of Paul Heyman, were just tearing up the fucking wrestling world with these matches. I still say to this day that, and that's another point of contention when I say Edge, low-key kind of helped ruin the business if you think about what's going on today, because between the SmackDown 6 and what ROH was doing at the time in the X Division and TNA, all that shit was so innovative and new. People talk about the in-ring stuff nowadays, and they never really bring up the fact that these guys in 2002 was really a pivotal point in professional wrestling. It was the start of the Ruthless Aggression era. More emphasis was being put on matches. People from America, more than ever, were starting to get more into New Japan Pro Wrestling. ROH became a thing, obviously. Like I said, the aforementioned TNA became a thing, and people were just really fixated on the in-ring stuff more than they ever were before, at least in comparison to the character development of the wrestlers. 2002 was very much a pivotal point. But then going into 2003, after the SmackDown 6, Edge, he did end up fucking up his neck. He was gone for a minute. He missed the entire, you get to No Way Out 2003, and then going forward from that point on, that's it. 2003 was just out of his view. Edge just missed the entire fucking year. The entire year. Edge's, his whole 29th year, boom, blur. He came back, I think during the draft in 2004, and right after WrestleMania, or maybe it was in March or April 2004, right after, WrestleMania 20. And he eventually immediately went after Evolution. He wanted to, because, I guess he just wanted to, because he went after Triple H initially. I think people never talk about this because he kind of turned his attention to Randy Orton for the Intercontinental Championship. But he did go after Triple H initially. He even kind of did some stuff with Kane in the middle of all that. But that was his whole thing when he came, to Raw, was that he wanted to get his hands on Evolution. Eventually, he did get his hands on Randy Orton. He won the Intercontinental Championship, which I thought was a very underrated match that they had at Vengeance that year. Eventually, he was doing this thing with Batista and Chris Jericho. I think he had a bit of an injury also, if I'm not mistaken, because he dropped the belt, because him and Jericho and Christian, that is, I can't remember if they fought over the vacant Intercontinental Championship at the ladder match on Unforgiven, or if Christian won the match and then they fought over the Intercontinental Championship. But he did drop the belt for a little bit due to a little small injury, if I remember correctly. And you can see by this point in time, because even prior to this, him and Benoit were tag team champions. Benoit was the World Heavyweight Champion, Edge was the tag team champion. And you can see a bit of heel tendencies a little bit, because Edge, you can kind of see that a turn could have happened with Benoit, but they never really went the extra mile until Edge came back and teamed up with Benoit again, and then eventually he did turn on him. And he was just really, I like that. His whole character was obsessed over the World Heavyweight Championship. He hated the fact that he never won the big one, and he kind of felt like everybody was out to get him. Everybody was trying to fucking screw him over, right? And he took it upon himself to turn on Chris Benoit. He eventually went at Triple H. He eventually went, I remember they had the whole little finish with Triple H and Benoit when they both tapped out, or Benoit and Edge when they both tapped out Triple H, or they both pinned him or some shit like that. And that's when the World Heavyweight Championship became vacant. Eventually they had the Elimination Chamber match, and Shawn Michaels was a special guest referee in that match, which he was trying to keep the order, but Edge ended up hitting him by accident. Shawn Michaels took offense to that. He super kicked him. He screwed Edge out of the match. And then Edge turned his sights to Shawn Michaels. He became overly obsessed with him because he felt like he was ruining his chance. And I'm telling you, week after week, Edge got more and more fucking psychotic and insane. He got fucking, he looked like a mental, he looked like Shaggy from Scooby-Doo grew his hair out and got super fucking mental. But eventually, he had some banging matches with Shawn, the Royal Rumble match, obviously, the no disqualification match that Angle ended up interfering in, or coming out after the match, I can't remember, but that was the setup for their match at WrestleMania 21. And then Edge, you know, he turned decisive a little bit to Chris Jericho and Benoit when he started teaming up with Christian again. They had a little bit of a reunion with Edge and Christian, and, you know, Tyson Tonko's right there and everything. Eventually, they did do the Money in the Bank ladder match where Edge won. You know, the story goes that Edge never wanted to participate in it to begin with, but Jericho had to talk him into it. That's legit. Edge did not want to participate into it. He kind of thought that another ladder match was kind of beneath him. He wanted to have something more of a spotlight on him. And then Jericho was like, "You fucking idiot. This is an innovative match. You could be making something out of yourself with this match, and you're going to win the match." And Edge was like, "Well, okay, I guess if that's going to be the case, I didn't want to put my body through this again for something that I feel like wasn't going to put the spotlight on me. But okay, if this is going to be the case, I'll go with it." And then Edge ended up winning the Money in the Bank briefcase. And now we get to that pivotal point that I know you guys want to talk about. And that was Edge's relationship with Lita. And, the story goes that, Matt Hardy and Lita were a little bit more dysfunction that they had any right to be going through 2004. And Lita and Edge, they ended up being car buddies while Matt was out with an injury, right? And as that time was occurring, they started to bond a little bit too much, and it became a full-on relationship. And Matt had no clue about it. Eventually, he found out about it. He got obviously super upset about it. You know, his best friend turned on him to cheat on him, get his girlfriend to cheat on him. They had an affair. And a lot of fans knew about the situation. You know, it was a problem for Lita because at the time she was a face, but fans were just like letting her have it, calling her a whore, all this other kind of shit. God almighty, ECW One Night Stand in 2005 was brutal. That was brutal. We want Matt. And throughout this entire thing, you would have situations where Matt would attack him backstage. And, legitimately, he didn't have a contract. He got fired at this time. He got laid off, and he would do shit to kind of like capitalize on it. He'll come out through the crowd, and he would legitimately attack Edge and all that other kind of shit. I'm still, to this very day, that little section where you have Edge and Lita walking down the corridor in the hallway, and they're about to go to a match, and then Matt Hardy comes off screen and he attacks Edge. To this day, I gotta look this up. I don't know if that's real or fake. You may say to Devontae, you're being worked. Probably, but I have no clue if that's real or fake. Nevertheless, though, it did culminate in a couple of matches with Edge and Matt, which I kind of felt Edge had way too much of an advantage over Matt, considering the circumstances of the feud. But Edge did kind of own Matt a little bit. I mean, Matt got that one win in the steel cage match at, I think, what was that, Unforgiven, I think? But Edge kind of owned him. He owned him at SummerSlam. He owned him throughout the fucking feud for the most part. And then he owned him in that ladder match when, Matt had to leave Raw and he went to SmackDown eventually. And, having Matt tied up into the ropes, looking up while Edge takes the fucking briefcase down. And it was just horrible. I thought Matt looked like a bitch during that feud, but maybe that's just me. But it was that kind of stuff that was going on that was really upping up his profile, which eventually he did get to a point where he was in a position where he can cash his briefcase in on John Cena, the first superstar ever to cash in the Money in the Bank briefcase. He did it to John Cena. He cashed in after the Elimination Chamber match. The only problem is after he won the championship belt, he immediately dropped it to John Cena at the Royal Rumble. And then this is when he got entangled with Ric Flair and then eventually Mick Foley, and then they had their hardcore match at WrestleMania 22. They touted it as one of the greatest hardcore matches at WrestleMania history. I guess by default, because there's not that many hardcore matches in general at WrestleMania, but okay, it was a fun ass match though, nonetheless though. I recorded that show, by the way, if you guys want to check it out on the retro pay-per-view videos. Not recorded, but talked about it. And then eventually Edge started to drift away. He started to aim his attentions back at the WWE Championship. Him and Triple H and John Cena had a banging fucking match at Backlash. And then he got sidetracked again for a little bit because of the stuff with Mick Foley and, the stuff with Terry Funk and Tommy Dreamer and his girlfriend and Lita, and they had their whole little hardcore match at ECW One Night Stand 2006. But then Edge turned his attention right back to the World Championship picture, wherein he attacked John Cena at the end of One Night Stand it was at the end that's when Paul Heyman came in and made that fake ass count, which I fucking hate that finish to this very day. And then as time started to go on, him and John Cena had a legendary feud that spawned years. I mean, it was on and off, but it spawned years. And it culminated in a couple of matches at SummerSlam. Obviously, Edge bitch slapping John Cena's father is something to remember. Obviously they had that match at Unforgiven in the TLC match, and they were killing it. They were killing it throughout the summertime, fall time of 2006. I mean, granted, I guess for me, this is when I started falling out with professional wrestling, so it didn't really... I mean, I look back on it, and I'm like, holy shit, you don't know what you got till it's gone. But they killed it. A lot of people had childhood memories from all that stuff. And then Edge started to team up with Randy Orton, and you got Rated RKO, and they did their thing with D-Generation X, obviously. A lot of people have fond memories of that. I fucking hated it. That's just me. They did some stuff in the Royal Rumble to build up the Shawn Michaels and the Undertaker as the last four in the Royal Rumble match in itself. Obviously, you got the Money in the Bank match when Edge took the hellacious spot from Jeff Hardy with the leg drop through it. Another pinpoint, because that was the first time I ever seen a ladder broken in half. Again, contributing to professional wrestling being terrible. Digress. But eventually, Edge, he got back into the world title picture. Unfortunately for Mr. Kennedy, where it was thought that he had a separated shoulder when he won the Money in the Bank briefcase that Edge took that spot in. And eventually, Edge did get the briefcase from Mr. Kennedy, beat the dog shit out of him. And then he used it to cash in on The Undertaker on SmackDown later on that week, which effectively made him a SmackDown superstar. And he didn't hold on to the World Heavyweight Championship that long. I can't remember what injury occurred. Or was that did he get an injury and then a wellness policy violation? Or was it the wellness policy violation and then the injury? Nevertheless, though, he ended up having to, drop the belt unceremoniously. That's when the Great Khali won the World Heavyweight Championship in that Battle Royal, which was one of the worst times, I think, in my life when it comes to professional wrestling for a multitude of things. I mean, wrestling at that time was just not good. Combine that with the Benoit stuff, it was not good at that time. But Edge, he eventually came back at Survivor Series, screwed over The Undertaker in the Hell in a Cell match with Batista. They had their triple threat match at Armageddon that year. Another banging fucking match, in my opinion. That's when Kurt Hawkins and Zack Ryder got involved. The Major Bros, they got involved. The Edgeheads, whatever the fuck you want to call them. They helped out Edge win the World Heavyweight Championship, but that's when Edge had this little stable called La Familia, when it was them, Chavo Guerrero, Vicky Guerrero, and, I know a lot of people have fond memories of this also. I fucking hated this time frame in early 2008 when they were feuding with Taker going into WrestleMania. I hated that feud. I loved the match. I hated the feud, though. I thought the feud was trash. That's just my opinion. I mean, it started to build up, obviously, after that, and they had, the match at Backlash, and then, no, I think it was, did they have a match at Backlash? I can't remember, but I know they had a match at Extreme Rules and the TLC stuff, and then, obviously, that culminated into the Hell in a Cell match, which was, obviously, a great match, too. They broke the cell wall. Undertaker literally sent him to hell. Great shit. He was gone for a little bit again, took another hiatus, and he came back at Survivor Series that year to help screw over Jeff Hardy, is what we thought. And he did his thing with Vladimir Kozlov and Triple H and that lame-ass fucking feud. And, eventually he had a triple threat match with him and, Jeff Hardy and Triple H at Armageddon that year when Jeff Hardy won the World Heavyweight Championship for the first time. Or I guess the WWE Championship. No, it was the WWE Championship. I'm sorry. Because I remember Triple H won the belt, and he had the spinny belt. I thought it just looked weird as fuck on him. But this is around the time when Edge really started to, die down a little bit as far as who he was as a character. Maybe I'm the only person that looks at that. I kind of felt after the Hell in a Cell match with The Undertaker, Edge just lost the same muster that, he had so much momentum between 2004 to 2008. I kind of felt like after the Hell in a Cell match, he just lost a bunch of muster. Or maybe it's just me. He tried to rekindle the feud with John Cena because, he beat Jeff Hardy for the WWE Championship because of Matt Hardy and shit. And, he tried to rekindle the feud with Cena and, they had the triple threat match at WrestleMania with the Big Show at 25, and they did the whole shit with Edge and, Cena and Big Show chokeslammed and Cena into like the little fucking circle thing and then exploded off the stage and shit. And then, you know, I don't know, he lost the World Heavyweight Championship to, what was it, Batista probably? I can't even remember who he lost the World Heavyweight Championship at that time. Or was it CM Punk? Probably, no, him and Jeff had that ladder match, right? And I think Jeff won, and then that's when he got cashed in on by CM Punk. And then Edge just floundered. He floundered for a little bit. You know, he tried to do the whole little tag team thing with Jericho, which eventually became Jericho because he got injured with his Achilles tendon. And he was gone again for the entire year, at least the remainder of 2009. Came back in 2010, and this is when he was a shell of his former self at this point right here, right? He's a babyface at this point. He did his thing with Jericho coming out of the Royal Rumble, going into WrestleMania. It was all fucking lame as shit. Fucking lame. This shit was trash. Lowest point of Edge's career, in my opinion, at that point. And then he did his thing also with the Raw general manager, and then he tried to rekindle a feud with Edge, and it was just so lame and cheesy. And then he went to SmackDown. He did his thing with Kane and Dolph Ziggler, eventually Alberto Del Rio, and then he retired. You know, all these injuries built up, and eventually Edge couldn't take it anymore, and he had to retire. And he was gone for a little bit. He did the podcast stuff with Christian, and, you know, he kept himself busy starring in low-budget sci-fi movies and TV shows and shit before he came back in 2020. And when he came back in 2020, the whole thing was supposed to be, and mind you, this whole downfall thing, this isn't just this portion right here. I feel the downfall of Edge, he had two portions of a downfall. The first one happened in 2008 to 2010, or 2011, I guess. And then when he comes back in 2020, obviously he's revigorated. He's back from his injury. He found out that he was good. Did like Sheamus's little web show, and then eventually, you know, he figured out, oh, I'm actually good. I can actually fucking wrestle still. When he had what could have been unfortunate, he fucked around, flipped off a bike, and he realized, okay, well, I can still wrestle because I thought I was going to be paralyzed from this fucking injury thanks to this Irish psychopath. He came into the Royal Rumble in 2020, one of the greatest Royal Rumble moments of all time. I didn't know he was going to come. I don't think anyone else knew he was going to come. It was fucking shocking. It was insane. And it was great. It was great. And then he had his feud with Randy Orton, which I thought was fine. I thought his stuff with Randy Orton was fine. It's just they had their match at Backlash that they called the greatest wrestling match of all time. And I get it. You know, this is all the COVID stuff. You know, they're trying to do something to have a bit of a gimmick to get people to want to watch the show and all this shit. And I get what they're trying to do. You know, I understand they had that WrestleMania match. Now this match right here. You know, it was just one of those things where it didn't really deliver. At least in my opinion, it didn't deliver to the extent of how I felt it should have delivered. And, you know, that's when he had like that triceps tear, and then like he was gone for like almost all of 2020 when we could have really used him at that time. He came back at the Royal Rumble again the following year, and you know, he almost won it, but then like he ended up, wait, did he win the match? I'm trying to think. Did he win the match? Or yeah, I think he did win the match. I think he did win that Royal Rumble, because that's when he was like really pissed off at Daniel Bryan for taking his opportunity when he was going up against Roman Reigns at WrestleMania. Yeah, he did win the match. Holy shit, that was 3 years ago. I reviewed that show. How the fuck did I not remember that? And then like, you know, look, I get what they were trying to do with the whole Daniel Bryan, Roman Reigns, Edge stuff. I think we can all agree, for the most part, Bryan Danielson had no business being in that feud. Bryan Danielson had no business being in that match. Should have just been Edge and Roman at WrestleMania. That's when crowds started to come back, but that's not what they wanted to do. It is what it is. But I like to still say that this right here is more of a downfall from Edge. Because it's one thing to be gone for as long as he was gone, but now he's coming back and he's taking a back seat to feuds like this. He's starting to put over people more and more often. But then we get to a point where, like, look, so, because he does this whole shit with Randy Orton, and then, you know, he does this shit with Alexa Bliss, if you guys remember that, and it just got super weird and super cringy after WrestleMania. The Edge and, you know, the Alexa Bliss, Randy Orton stuff, that was before WrestleMania. You know, like he comes back and again, crowds are starting to come back in and shit like that. he eventually did have a feud with Seth Rollins, which in my opinion, that's his best work since coming back to WWE, in my opinion. That or the Judgment Day stuff. Pick one or the other. But the Seth Rollins stuff was very, very close. They had a pretty good feud going throughout 2021, which culminated in what I feel, at least so far, is the best Hell in a Cell match of the decade. That match with them at that Saudi show at, what was it, Crown Jewel probably? That was the best Hell in a Cell match this entire decade. And I mean, who knows? Maybe Punk and McIntyre might surpass it. But as of right now, that's the best Hell in a Cell match ever so far this entire decade. And the feud, it had a bunch of promise with the whole, Seth Rollins breaking into Edge's. So did he break into Edge's house or some shit like that? He did some shit like that. I can't remember. But whatever. I thought it was a great feud from what I can remember. And then people, he started to engage with The Miz. I know a lot of people didn't like that all too much. I thought it was a fine feud. Other people didn't think it was a fine feud. We all have our opinions, and it is what it is. And then eventually, he turned heel and he wanted to have a match with AJ Styles at WrestleMania. And like I said, the downfall started to continue after the stuff with Seth Rollins, because it's like he had the match with AJ. The whole feud was fucking lame, and then the match in itself was incredibly disappointing. It wasn't a bad match, it was just an incredibly disappointing match, and a long list of disappointing big match stuff involving AJ Styles. He's a great wrestler, obviously, he's AJ Styles, but I swear to God, his mundane TV matches hit a hell of a lot more harder than his WrestleMania matches. And that's when he started the whole Judgment Day stuff with Damian Priest, and then Rhea Ripley, and then Finn Balor was trying to, him and AJ were trying to combat the Judgment Day, and eventually the Judgment Day turned on Edge and made him look like a dumb fuck, made him like a bitch, which obviously he contributed to that stable, which is still ongoing to this very day. Eventually we did get the I Quit match with Edge and Finn Balor, which I thought was a fantastic fucking match in my opinion. Thought that was a great match. You ended up getting Edge and Beth Phoenix taking on Rhea Ripley and Finn Balor in a mixed tag match, which I also think was a great fucking match. And mind you, all the stuff that's happening and shit like that in between, he was teaming up with Rey Mysterio and Dominic, which obviously that contributed to Dominic eventually joining the Judgment Day, which he is still with to this very day. Again, people low-key don't think about the things that Edge has legitimately helped produce in professional wrestling today, you know what I mean? And he even helped put over Austin Theory for the United States Championship in the episode of Raw, if you guys remember that also. But again, throughout all this, he was mainly feuding with the Judgment Day. The only problem with Edge, and again, this is going on for 2020, and he had a problem with this also, was that it was really hard to get involved in Edge's matches and his storylines because he was used so infrequently as a part-timer that it was really, really hard to get into the stuff that he was trying to engage with, you know what I mean? So for an example, eventually when he had the match with Finn Balor in the Hell in a Cell at WrestleMania 39, it's like, and I talked about this at the time, the match in itself was fine. I didn't think it was all that great, but at the same time, I didn't really care too much for the feud because they really didn't give me that much of a build with Edge. He got taken out by the Judgment Day and they took out Beth Phoenix, and that was supposed to be something as far as seriousness is occurring with Edge. He should have came back the next night or the following week or something like that, but they just let the shit go on and on and on and on and on, and you got to the Hell in a Cell stuff, and it just didn't really hit as well as I thought it should have hit. And then Edge essentially floundered throughout the entire 2023 after that. He tried to get involved with the World Heavyweight Championship stuff, but it just wasn't the same. His last act of, giving back, because at this point in time, everybody's kind of sick of Edge also because he keeps going over everybody. And then he has the match with Grayson Waller at Madison Square Garden, and he beats him, obviously. Then he has the match with Sheamus, and then he beats him off, and then he leaves WWE. His contract expired. Eventually, he does come to AEW. And honestly, there's not really much to talk about with his AEW career, because once he comes to AEW, and again, when I talk about the downfall of Edge, understand, man, it's not just strictly talking about AEW. That was just a stamp of approval when it comes to the downfall. When I talk about Edge's downfall, I'm going from 2020, maybe 2021 to this point right here. I think after the Seth Rollins stuff, Edge was never seen the same again at all. Period, point blank. You can say that maybe he had peaks and valleys between his return in 2020 to 2021, but 2021 itself, after Seth Rollins, that was it. I felt like he wasn't the same again. Wasn't putting on that many compelling matches, in my opinion, outside of maybe the I Quit match with Finn Balor, which I really, really liked. But outside of that, like nothing that really, grabbed onto you. I liked the feud to a lesser degree with the Judgment Day, but they didn't continue it long enough for me, or continue it more consistently enough for me to want to care about it. And like I said, you get to, All Elite Wrestling, All Out, he comes into the match, or I guess he came after the match with Christian and Darby Allin. And, he starts this whole thing with Christian, and it has a lot of promise to it. You think to yourself, this could be Shawn Michaels and Triple H territory if they play their cards right. They started off with Christian, pretending that he was going to side with Edge. He tells him to go fuck himself. Gives him a concerto a couple of weeks later. And you think to yourself, like, okay, is this going to hit a point? Like, we're going to get to a point where this is nope. Because AEW, they did not know how to use Edge, and they still don't know how to use Edge. They had him on television every week, but you're wasting him on Collision. And it's like, well, Devontae, he's trying to replace CM Punk. Well, okay, and look what good that has done. Look at the return on the investment of that. Edge ain't gonna do it by himself. You need reasoning to get Collision over, and Edge is nothing more than a person who can play a part on the show to help it get it over. He himself will not get the show over by himself. Punk couldn't even do it by himself. You know what I mean? It's just not gonna happen. Not for AEW, that is. And it's like they kept playing off this stuff with him and Christian, and if they would have played their cards right and actually gave us a legitimate story to be played out throughout the next couple of months, this could have culminated easily at Double or Nothing in that I Quit match that they did on a regular episode of fucking Dynamite that they blew off fucking completely just to go to fucking Double or Nothing, and you have some stupid fucking... Bruh, that shit still pisses me off to this very fucking day. It just makes no sense. You do this whole stupid fucking bullshit blow-off nonsense, and you do all this stupid-ass Cope Open bullshit nonsense, bruh, just to fucking have a 6-man tag match with fucking Aleister Black and the rest of his loser-ass stable, just to turn around, you do some random fucking steel cage match at Double, and it was so fucking lame. And look what happened. Look what happened during the steel cage match. Broke his damn leg. Broke his leg. And look where we're at right now. Look where, yeah, you got a special appearance from Gangrel. Yeah, all that shit happened. But that is the extent of his AEW career, and it hasn't even been 1 full year yet. Edge, for me, I always kind of felt like he tried too hard. If I had to really sum up Edge's career up until this point right here, for all the good he has had in his career, for all the bad he has had in his career, he is one of my favorite wrestlers of all time. But when you tie Edge all together, the key word is try hard. Try hard. For better or for worse, try hard. There is such thing as giving too much to the business. Edge, for what anyone wants to say about him, is one of the most influential wrestlers of all time. From his tag team with Christian, from the matches that he has helped conceive, whether we're talking about the TLC matches, whether we're talking about the ladder matches in general. The whole ladder match concept was fucking re-envisioned by him, Christian, and the Hardy Boys, and you can throw the Dudley Boys in there too. He has been a massive influence on professional wrestling today. His character, as far as his heel work, is established as one of the greatest heel characters in the history of the business. He is in a lot of people's childhood memories. His stuff with Lita and Matt Hardy is legendary. His stuff with the Rated RKO stuff is legendary. He is known as one of the greatest world champions in the history of the business. Literally every division he has participated in, he has reinvented. The SmackDown 6 goes down in history as some of the greatest matches in SmackDown history and WWE and television wrestling history. He has done a lot in his 26 years of professional wrestling. And I just want to see him go out, not in a stupor, because he's a Hall of Famer also. He got his Hall of Fame induction in 2012. I want to see him bow out gracefully, going into the sunset, knowing that he could look back and see that all the greatness that he has brought to professional wrestling was not in vain. Some may say in vain. I don't think it's in vain. But to see what he's doing in AEW right now, to see how Tony Khan is using him, to see what his current status is right now, it pisses me off. It really does. But it's not to say that anything in his career was ever done. It's not to say anything in his career was done for no reason. I think it's probably the best way to look at Edge. One of the greatest tag team wrestlers of all time. One of the greatest main eventers of all time. Just because his downfall is currently ongoing right now doesn't take away from the fact that his career will always and forever be. You know what? Not even that. I would even say that his tag team career, his build up, because he's one of the rare superstars like Shawn Michaels, like Bret Hart, like Jeff Hardy, even to go up through the rankings, to be a part of the things that he has been a part of. Main event in WrestleMania, participated in all of the pay-per-views. I don't think there's a match type that Edge has not been in. The people that he has helped brought up, guys like John Cena, guys like Randy Orton, guys like Batista, would tell you that he's one of the best workers they've ever been in the ring with. For all of that, and even though his career right now is in a stumper, I think I can safely sit back and look at Edge's career, Adam Copeland's career, and I think I can say it reeked of awesomeness. It definitely reeked of awesomeness. Let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below. This was a downfall video for sure, but it's a downfall with a lot of heights that he fell from. I think that's the best way to put it. As always, my name is Devontae, and I'll be catching you guys later. Deuces, P. Ice.